We are so excited to be here today to share with you a program that we're really proud of at Kimberly-Clark, and that's the Family Caregiving Program at Sam's Club. And as Alicia mentioned, we mentioned lots during today, a truly great program doesn't start without an actionable insight. And one of the first steps into obtaining that actionable insight is to really assess the challenge or situation at your retailer for your brand and or category. So in this case, at Sam's Club, they really wanted to elevate their experience in the health and wellness categories to get beyond the confines of grocery, electronics, general merchandise, and actually beyond the confines of the physical club. So more of an omnichannel perspective. And then with Depend, we were really struggling to deliver growth on our Depend brands at Sam's Club. So we had a lot of work to do to think outside the box, no pun intended, and to think about things a little bit differently than we had in the past with our retailer. So we worked with our brand team in discovering a unique insight that was able to elevate this conversation with our retailer. And that insight was we found that at Sam's Club, 63% of incontinence buyers, or for Depend purchasers, were done by caregivers. So those that were providing care to their loved ones that were suffering from chronic conditions, disabilities, diseases, and the fatalities of old age. So this was a insight that was really unique to Sam's Club, where other retailers was only 28% of those total category purchasers were done by caregivers. So then we looked at what was going on with Depend, and Depend was only in 22% of Sam's Club at the time prior to this launch. So we had limited exposure with our Depend brand. Sam's wasn't really considered a destination for health and wellness, and we knew that we needed to get there. And then we were limited with only the packaging. So while we do a lot of shopper marketing, we really have one big billboard at Sam's Club. As you guys know, it's warehouse and industrial, and so the billboard is our package. So we needed to go beyond that if we were going to make a connection with caregivers. Then we took a look at our shopper. And our shopper, when we took a deeper dive, she's a busy mom. She has a family of her own. And now she's simultaneously struggling with balancing her own family, and now she's taking on the life of a caregiver and understanding what that is. And she's overwhelmed. She's struggling with balancing all of this, and she's trying to find the resources, doesn't know where to go to. She's frustrated. She's time-starved, and so she's not really knowing where to go to. So we really knew that this was an opportunity that we needed to explore to figure out, okay, what can we do for Depend, selfishly, but then also, how can we help our retailer? What's important to them? They wanted to get into the health and wellness space, and we really needed to peak our visibility of Depend category with our core shopper. And so with that, we really discovered the insight, which was that, excuse me, I want to read it verbatim. Care shopping, as with caregiving, is demanding and time-consuming. And while caregivers are busy looking after everyone else, no one is looking after them. There's 45 million people in the U.S. that are delivering care, and they feel alone. They don't feel like they have anyone to turn to. And so this was an unmet need that we needed to fulfill for her. Additionally, when she thought of Sam's Club, she's thinking of her household essentials. She's thinking she has to go to multiple destinations to make not only her own family needs, but then the needs of her loved one. So that was also time-consuming that she doesn't have. So what are we going to do about that? So then that's when we really uncovered the idea. So we had the situation, which I mentioned, Depend's not doing well. We need to get better with visibility with the health and wellness categories for Sam's Club. And we have overcome and understood the shopper insight. So then we developed the idea. And the idea really was to provide caregivers with a one-stop care solution and where they felt that all their needs could be met. We could bundle all of the solutions that they were looking for. We could provide them with valuable resources, tips, tricks, and all the things that they need to provide those solutions for them that they would think of Sam's Club as top of mind when thinking of their caregiving solutions. So then we had to do all of that great work in order to then develop the plan. So what were we going to go do about it?
So yes, as Cody said, she set up the problem and the insight that we were trying to solve, right? So then we had to develop the plan. Now we understood who the shopper was. We could identify where she'd be most receptive to receiving a message, what she wanted to hear in that message, and from whom she wanted to hear it from. So, I mean, I think that is where we started when we started to look at developing the 360-degree plan. So, you know, we really started our journey looking across her entire shopper journey. We really wanted to communicate to the caregiver first and foremost in that pre-shop experience. We wanted to kind of prime that shopping trip, get her kind of engaged with caregiving, her caregiving needs, and Sam's Club as she was building her list and the different retailers that she was going to be visiting to fulfill those needs. So, you know, as you've probably heard before, no one really understands the challenges of caregiving until they've really truly experienced it for themselves, right? Unless you're a caregiver, you don't understand the challenges that you're facing or the tasks that you're up against on a daily basis. And so because of that, we leverage social influencers, and we leverage influencers based on that insight that no one understands challenges unless they're experiencing it. So we sought out influencers who had a personal connection to caregiving, so people who were experiencing it for themselves. They were able to share their story with their followers to really communicate the struggles, the challenges, kind of get real with it, right? But then also talk about Sam's Club as their destination of choice to be able to really fulfill all of their caregiving needs. Also, as part of that pre-shop, we leveraged the Healthy Living Made Simple magazine that Sam's Club provides to have print ads and editorial content in that magazine. We use that as a platform to really introduce the family caregiving program to the over 4 million Sam's Club members. It was a great resource to do that. And we were able to leverage the editorial content to really elevate and bring the issue of caregiving to the forefront. So people knew that this was something that people dealt with every day. Also, as part of our pre-shop journey, we leveraged digital banner ads. We were able to really hyper-locally target based on WMX media to engage those caregiving members to drive them back to Sam's Club for solutions, for extra savings, and then also for the additional support. So that was kind of our priming that trip to Sam's Club. But from that, we really needed to establish Sam's Club's credentials from a caregiving perspective. Why does anybody care? Sam's Club just trying to push another product. No, Sam's Club really has a vested interest in these caregivers. And so what we were needing to do is, and what we had uncovered from some of the insights work that we had uncovered, is that caregivers were most responsive to people who had a voice in the health and wellness space, who had health and wellness credentials, basically, someone to kind of back up the stories that they were telling. So we took that on ourselves too, and so we leveraged the Sam's Club pharmacy, we leveraged the Caregiving Action Network, and we leveraged Depend as being the category leader to be that trusted resource and support to really communicate back you know, with all of this curated content. And all of that content was culminated and curated and then lived on a Sam's Club microsite, family caregiving microsite. That was able to be accessible via multiple channels. So members could access that microsite by using Digimark technology, which is the package. You can scan the package with your mobile phone anywhere on the package, and it will link you directly to that website. You could simply visit samsclub.com to go, samsclub.com/family caregiving. And then you could also take advantage and get to that microsite in club near the pharmacy via some interactive kiosks. So there were a bunch of different avenues. So whether you were super tech savvy or whether you weren't, you would be able to access this. Let's see where we are. Okay, and then so from there, we were establishing the credentials. We had primed the shopping trip. We really needed to activate in club. And let me, oops, going the wrong way. Sorry, guys. There we go. So activating in club, we wanted to continue that shopper journey. So everything that she was seeing kind of along her trip, we offered sample boxes, caregiving sample boxes that were full of relevant caregiving products that tied back to the items that were available for purchase at Sam's Club. We wanted her to be able to try and experience these different things that she was searching for from a solution perspective. Those caregiving sample boxes were available at Sam's Club Pharmacy, but you had to purchase a box of Depend to be able to redeem for that. So within the box of Depend, there was a barcoded sticker that you could redeem at the Sam's Club Pharmacy on your next trip to Sam's Club. And that also was kind of the introduction that we had for the caregiving member to meet the Sam's Club pharmacist, who could serve as another resource for them when they had questions or needed answers, kind of as that one-to-one support network that Sam's Club could provide. Also in Club, we had created these, or we brought in these interactive kiosks, which we like to consider that endless aisle. So it was a way that you could be in Club, and understand the total breadth of assortment that Sam's Club offered specific to caregiver based on categories, based on certain needs that you may have. You could navigate this kiosk that way. And it also really could showcase the expanded assortment that Sam's Club had online as well. And now, if it works, we're going to show you a video that kind of sums up what we just talked about. Do I just push play? Does someone else do that? Yes, no? Oh.
As millions of baby boomers grow older, they're beginning to need more care. Adult children are often the ones stepping up to fill that caregiver role. For this so-called sandwich generation, caring for aging parents while raising families of their own can be an overwhelming responsibility. Where do you turn for answers and support? Kimberly-Clark, the maker of Depend, helps people with incontinence reclaim their lives, but realized nobody was helping the caregiver. What was needed was an entirely new way to help caregivers shop, one that was solution-based so they could make confident, informed choices. With the creation of the Family Caregiving program at Sam's Club, caregivers finally had a trusted resource and one-stop shop for their unique needs. While shopping for Depend, they could instantly connect to more information online simply by scanning the package with an app on their phone. In the pharmacy, Family Caregiving kiosks made it easy to browse and buy products that weren't carried in the store. And since trying new products can be risky in a warehouse where items are usually sold in bulk, special caregivers' kits of free samples were given away to caregivers making a Depend purchase. To spread the word about the Family Caregiving program, bloggers shared their personal stories and inspiring advice straight from the trenches.
No one says that raising a growing family and acting as a caregiver to an older family member will be easy. It can be complicated and overwhelming. That's why I love how Sam's Club Caregivers program is making my role so much easier than it used to be.
Family Caregiving connected with caregivers and drove sales lift and category growth. What started as a 3-month test became an ongoing program at Sam's Club. And most importantly, by caring for the caregivers, Kimberly-Clark helped make one of life's toughest but most rewarding jobs just a little easier.
All right, so that just kind of summed it up in a much more polished way. So we're glad we got to share that with you. That was part of our Effie submission, and we just found out last week that we won 2 Effies for this program, so we're super excited about that. Thank you. So as you could tell from the video and then what we've shared, this program really showed that Sam's Club could credibly compete with other channels such as drug and then the medical supply stores for that caregiving dollar. It became that destination. So because of the lift that we saw on Depend sales and the halo that this program really brought to the private label underwear category, Sam's Club we convinced them that it was something that they needed to kind of expand. So that is why you saw the caregiver program, Sam's Club take it on as an evergreen program, and we've been able to continue it for another year. Sorry guys, I thought we were on here. Sorry about that. Okay, and then also in addition to becoming an evergreen program, as part of the caregiving program that's in its first year, we were able to secure incremental display in nearly 1/3 of the Sam's Clubs, which is a big feat. So all of you guys who know and try to sell in incremental displays can understand how challenging and what a big win that is for us. And the overall program really exceeded the benchmarks. You will see here on this slide that we saw a 6.3% lift in Depend. We saw a 6.4% category growth, an increase in market share. And an interesting thing to us, out of all of the people we were able to convert as part of this program, 20% of those people that converted in Club were first-time purchasers of Depend at Sam's Club, and that number was even higher online. It was 25%. So the media message was really getting out there, and people were finding that connection. And then I think some other kind of nice notable things is we distributed over 30,000 of those free sample kits in Club. And then we were able to secure 30 of those interactive kiosks in Sam's Clubs across the country. And so some of the key takeaways that I just wanted to share with you today as we wrap this up, again, that we won 2 Effies in the omnichannel category and the single retailer. And that, again, just to reiterate, this idea really was born from an actionable insight to remind you, we really found that need for caregivers. We uncovered that 63% of people shopping in the adult incontinence category at Sam's Club were doing so as a caregiver, and they needed support. So kind of with that in mind, we just based it on that. We also developed the idea, which was something to really bring the caregiving destination to Sam's Club, which was a solution for both Sam's Club and the category to raise just awareness of that category. And then I will say probably the single most important thing with this category, or excuse me, with this program and being so successful was the collaboration and the co-creation that we were able to do with our Sam's Club merchants and in-club support team. So without that, I don't think this program would have truly been as successful as it was. I mean, we had an advocate internally at Sam's Club who really supported this program and helped us navigate the waters internally. It was something that I feel like we were following the strategy that Sam's Club had set aside to grow their health and wellness category and to grow their pharmacy and awareness of that. And I think, all of that, having that support inside and just truly starting with an actionable insight was what led us to execute with excellence. And that really sums it up. And you can't be complete in any presentation in the Walmart and Sam's Club environment without a quote from our favorite Sam Walton, right? You can't just keep doing what works one time. Everything around you is changing. So to succeed, you need to stay out in front of the change. So thank you guys so much for your time. Are there questions? Questions?
So a really robust program, right, from data, insight to big idea, activation, great results. Something you said earlier, Cody, I just want to kind of bridge back to. So how do you work with others, right? You mentioned a little bit about co-creating with the retailer, but what about kind of cross-functionally, whether that's internally with Kimberly-Clark or externally with agency partners and some of the guys that helped you bring that activation plan together? You just talk about that a little bit through those different steps of the process.
Yeah, so we had a lot of upfront work that we did. We actually, when this first started a couple years ago, we worked really closely with our partners with the Caregiver Action Network, which is a third-party resource to any caregiver, really, but Kimberly-Clark has a special relationship with that organization. So we are able to leverage their content, leverage their insights from a caregiving perspective, and they helped us run the introductory kind of meeting with Sam's Club that brought together all of the insights that we had from a brand perspective and all of the insights that we had from a caregiver perspective, and we brought that to Sam's in a really hands-on way. We actually had this, our merchants and everybody involved from the Sam's Club perspective be a caregiver for a day, like really experience what that meant. They had to change, underpants and all of those things and get kind of down and dirty with understanding. And we really wanted them to feel the emotion that a caregiver really goes through in this experience. So there was lots of, iterations of that, but that really was the catalyst that brought this to the forefront was that insight immersion session, if you will, with Sam's Club. And then from there, as Bridget mentioned, we really got an advocate inside of Sam's who still today couldn't be more of an advocate. So that stemmed, I think this is a third year.
We're starting our third
starting our third year, and he's been with us the whole time. He's been able to help us maneuver those muddy waters in Sam's, whether from our merchant, who's involved along the way as well. But there's other, ropes to go through as well that he's helped us really be our cheerleader because it's worked. We have the results to prove the success of the program, and it's continuing to spiral. So he's just our biggest cheerleader internally, which has, again, helped this program to be so successful. So that was one big piece of it. I think probably the most important piece. And then from external partners, we really did lean in our agency to help bring the idea to life. And then really, we did a lot of heavy lifting ourselves and working with our vendor partners. Some of them are in this room today. to understand from the social influencer program to the caregiving box that we distributed at the pharmacy, like all the ins and outs of that execution. You know, we were the point or the nose to touch from that perspective, but all of those partners helped us to deliver on excellence in the execution phase.
Any other questions?
I think you guys answered it, but I was curious on the length of time from beginning of planning to actual launch.
Yeah.
And then the second component was the bringing in the partner supplier teams, including Abbott, it appears, and others. So can you speak to the timing, which maybe is a couple of years and beyond?
Yeah.
And then how much role did Sam's Club play in bringing in those partners, and how much did you guys make the phone calls to like Jennifer or whoever else to get that done?
Yes, so that has been year 2. So we just finished up year 2 where we brought in additional partners. So as we mentioned, this was really a total solution. We did want to be the category leader in terms of Depend, but we also understood that this went far beyond just incontinence needs and solutions, but nutrition and all of those things that caregivers are dealing with. And so year 2, we called it Caregiver 2.0. We decided that, you know, wouldn't this be great if we could extend to all of those partner solutions, as well as, honestly, some deeper pockets, if we could bring it all together to make the awareness go further and farther and more efficient. If we all had a voice, you know, we're all talking to our shoppers and caregivers in different ways, so why don't we all work together? So that was about a 1.5-year process from finishing up first year, understanding that we were going to take it to additional suppliers in the second year. It was a little bit of both. So to directly answer your question, we asked Sam's if they had preferred partners that they wanted us to work with, and obviously private label. We had to play nice with them, so that was obviously a choice that they put in the bank. But then we have relationships as well, and so I picked up the phone and I called who I knew and said, you know, we want to come on this journey with us, and we've got some really great, I mean, that's why today is such a great way to meet people and network, because you never know who you can work with, not only from the vendor relationships, but also other supplier relationships that you can co-market together to build a solution for your shoppers.
And then to answer your question on timing, I mean, I think it was truly like, I mean, I know with 2.0 that I worked on, and Cody can speak more for the 1.0, it was a full year program from kind of the ideation part to the actual execution. So while it started in the prior year, I didn't execute until August. So
it all depends. I mean, another caveat is everybody wants to prove out an ROI when they're, you know, investing in a program like this. So obviously, we have to wait on Sam's Club to make some of those merchandising decisions, which involved everybody's different buyers. So, you know, it kind of depends on how long that process takes, because if that didn't take so long, we probably could have been out there earlier, but that process was a little
slow.
How did you guys identify your influencers, and were you able to tie an ROI to that particular piece of your program?
So, I mean, I can do it from this.
Repeat her.
Oh, sorry. She was just asking how were we able to pick our influencers, or were we able to pick our influencers, and how are we able to measure an ROI on that? Good question. So I can't speak for year 1 because I wasn't at Kimberly-Clark. I don't know, Cody, if you have any insights. But from a year 2 perspective, we work with our influencer partners to really kind of at the beginning of the campaign to identify those influencers who had experience. So from almost a raise your hand perspective, like who has experienced the caregiving set? Are you a caregiver? Have you worked in the caregiver space as a nurse or, you know, something like that in that field, to really bring home like the realness of caregiving. So we did a lot of work on the upfront to be able to identify those. So it wasn't just like a random pool of influencers. We were very specifically targeting people who could speak to it from an emotional perspective. And then from an ROI measuring ability, I know we had to optimize the program kind of halfway through because we weren't truly getting like the connections that we were hoping to get. And so we're still waiting for some of those final metrics to come back in. But you know, we were trying to tie it back to in-club sales. So we kind of ran the influencers as the first wave of that campaign, and then it was followed by a couple of other tactics that we brought to life. So we were able to kind of take that small piece and kind of carve it out to measure the impact that influencers had on the program to drive sales.
Yeah, and I would just add to that we took the whole program, so all of the facets of the program to really measure the ROI, because as I mentioned earlier, there's not one single thing that we could say, oh, that drove X% lift because that one influencer did X. So it was really a combination of everything that we had going on, and we had a lot going on. So another thing about the influencers that we really just wanted to personalize and make it credible. So it wasn't really necessarily measured on ROI because it was part of the whole piece. Some of those other factors of incremental distribution, display, and a page in the ISB, like those were kind of our measures of success, or if we do this, then we get this kind of thing. So it kind of all just worked seamlessly together for that total ROI.
Yeah, and that's kind of how we do it too.
Yeah.
Never get that piece. One last question on the influencers. Once you identified them through their expertise, did you limit the ones you chose based on their reach, like how many followers they had?
No.
Did you do like small and what? Like how did you pick that?
It was kind of, it ran the gamut. So
Yeah.
there were some with smaller, more like engaged followers, and then there were some that were kind of more of that promotional, like just talking about getting your, using Sam's Club as a destination for your caregiving needs. So.
Yeah, and I'll say it on unrelated to caregiver. Even now when I'm looking at influencers on maybe a separate program, I'm not always just looking at I am looking at those engagement numbers probably more critically than I am the reach, because I want that engagement. I want the true action, not necessarily, if they're reaching 50 million people, but only 2 people are interacting, and I have somebody with 19 million and 500,000 people are interacting, I'm going to go with the 500 one interacting. So influencers are hard, but there's different measurements that we look at. Yeah.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Amy Attenberger. I'm the director of shopper marketing for Kimberly-Clark, and Bridget and Cody are very familiar to me. They're my employees. So I just wanted to add, interestingly, I've been with Kimberly-Clark for 15 years. I'm new to this area, new to shopper, but most of my experience at KC is in brand. And I was on the Depend brand as the senior brand manager when the Sam's team came to us with this idea. And one of the most, I guess, interesting things about this is insights are king, because this wasn't anything to do with our brand idea that year. And we don't target caregivers. In fact, the idea of targeting a caregiver scared us to death because it sounds old. It sounds like something that the Depend brand doesn't want to be. But when we understood the insight at its core and understood the health and wellness push at Sam's and really sat with the team and understood that, not only did we believe it was an interesting direction to go, we felt like we should really lean in. And as you can see, 2 FEs later, Caregiver 3.0, and now I'm excited to be in this role to sort of see this through. But I think the point I'm trying to make is sometimes, those insights don't even align with something that a brand might do, but push, because if it's right, it's right, you feel it's right, and look at the success you can have. So thank you, too, for a wonderful presentation.
Yeah. Thank you.
I wanted to also mention that it kind of goes back to what Alicia was saying earlier about know your shopper and your consumer. In this case, our consumer and shopper are not the same person. So just another kind of hit on that point. Yeah. When she said that, I was like, yep, that's caregiver. It's not the consumer, but she needs to understand the consumer need.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah.